we get on to V3, there are a couple spin-off series that I need to tackle first, starting with the third-person shooter Ultra Despair Girls. Released in 2015, this spin-off tells the story of Komaru Naegi and what it's like to live in the outside world when despair is at its peak. To be honest, a good chunk of these characters were really bland and forgettable, so instead of ranking them regularly, I decided to do a lightning round where I have to describe my opinion of these characters in 10 words or less. I've seen many people do that inspired by Jello Apocalypse, so I guess it'd be funny if I did the same. Now, without further ado, let's begin the lightning round. Cute, funny, and charming. My favorite protagonist. Did anyone else think he was a girl? Had his role stolen by Nagito, now an empty husk. Get your new baby Leon. Sad backstory included. A thought-provoking concept? Execution. For such a hated character, no one seems to care. Is this supposed to be a twist villain? Not as bad as people say? Still, one of the only girls in Danganronpa to wear pants. Guess the Fujisaki lineage is just doomed forever. Owie but a boy. Thought he was a girl. Yeah, just what I expected. 5 out of 10s all around with the exception of Komaru and Kurokuma because most of these characters I really do not care about. Honestly, I'm not too mad about the bland characters because instead of being an ensemble game like Danganronpa, Ultra Despair Girls is all about Komaru and Toko. And since both of them were well written in that game, that's all that really matters. The next, well, it's not really a game, we'll be ranking is the Danganronpa 3 anime and the several characters that were introduced there. Like Ultra Despair Girls, they aren't as fleshed out as the mainline characters, but I don't feel like doing a lightning round for the second time. The reason why is because there are some characters that I genuinely want to talk about in detail. Don't expect this part of the video to be as long as the others though, since, like I said before, a lot of these characters are pretty bland.
Chisayuka's Home.
I really don't have that much of an opinion on Chisa, but what I will say is that it's pretty interesting to see a teacher of Hope's Peak. For some reason, the idea that Hope's Peak having actual teachers never really occurred to me. She was apparently the ultimate housekeeper when she was younger, and it makes me wonder how that actually works. 4 out of 10.
Dasa Ku Bandai.
Fun fact, Daisuke is the only Danganronpa character whose name starts with the letter D. He's also the tallest character in the series, being 7 feet tall. You probably don't care about that, but you know what? I do. When first watching the anime, he was actually my favorite character, which sounds pretty stupid, but hey, he was funny and actually stood out, which is something many of these characters needed. Everything about him was just odd, but in a good way. He has soulless dots for eyes, has a horrifying grin, but also has a really high-pitched voice. One other quirk about him is that he says things that seem like they have important meanings, when in reality, they just mean nothing. I just find that really funny, and I genuinely wish he didn't die so early. 7 out of 10.
Great Gozu.
Here's another character that I generally don't care about. He did help the gang a bit, but he was too forgettable to really like him. The only real thing that makes him stand out in any way is the fact that he wears a mask. 4 out of 10.
Juzo Sakura.
Like Chisa, Juzo plays a more important role than the others in the series. Also like Chisa, I don't really have any strong opinions on him. I do say he's better than most of the characters here because he's not immediately forgettable, but even when watching the series, I just maintained a neutral stance on this guy. I did feel sad when he was bullied for being gay, but I do have to say that his crush on the Persona 4 guy was pretty obvious. One thing of note that I have to say is that he cut off his left arm so they could be immune to the rules. Every time I see one of those games with death bracelets, I keep on wondering why the characters don't just cut off their arm. Yeah, I get losing an arm is sad and all, but it sure is better than being dead. Plus, the bracelet's always on the left arm, so the only people who really suffer from this majorly are the 10% of people who are left-handed. Like me. Anyway, while I don't really care that much about him, I do say he's one of the better ones. 5 out of 10.
Kazuo Tengan.
You know how I talked about how Mahiru is bland overall but has a couple of negative traits? Tengen is like that, but infinitely worse. Not only is Tengen as bland as the others, he also has one of the worst twists in the entire series. You'd think that him being the mastermind behind the whole thing would give him some level of relevance, but he's still as bland as before. I feel like there are two ways a character can be unlikable to me. One is if a character is bland, and the other is if a character does something I really don't like, and Tengen does both. 1 out of 10.
Koichika's Acura.
Even though he's one of the more forgettable characters, I like this guy. It's mostly because he reminds me of Raymond Shields from Ace Attorney, but even without that similarity, I still enjoyed it whenever he showed up. 6 out of 10.
Supermunecata.
Here's another character that's more important than the others. While I have a neutral opinion on him now, I do remember hating him when watching the anime, which makes sense since he's an antagonist. However, he does have a unique stance when it comes to hope and despair, saying that despair should be completely eliminated at any cost. Honestly, I somewhat understand what you're trying to go for, but sometimes it feels like the writers behind Danganronpa forget what hope and despair even mean, and I feel like this is a good example of this. 3 out of 10.
Gahara.
You know how I said that Mikon gets better as time passes on? Well, I feel like Gekuhara is the exact opposite. When watching the first episodes of the Future arc, I was really charmed by her character. I loved the gimmick that she was too shy to speak, so she talks through Monami. However, once it was revealed that Gekuhara was secretly a robot, all the things I found interesting about her disappeared, and she quite literally became an empty husk of what she once was. 4 out of 10.
Rucarando.
Rucarando has to be one of the most hated characters in the series, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't agree. The main reason why she's so unlikable is her current relationship with Seiko. In theory, the two each have their own reasons and misconceptions about one another, which tragically moves them apart. In execution, however, their feud is so cartoonishly one-sided that only a contrarian would have ever sided with Ruruka. Ruruka desperately wants Seiko to try out one of her candies, and is mad that her best friend constantly refuses to try them. Here's the thing though, Seiko is allergic to sugar, and even consuming a small amount will kill her.
Hey there, guy, you wanna try my ham? It's green and it's good. This isn't a scam.
Go away, Sam. Your ham I won't try. If I eat it, I will probably die. I am allergic. You know that, you fuck. Now go play in traffic. Get hit by a truck.
Ah, guy, don't be shy. This ham is your friend. Your life is a wreck. Who cares if it ends?
For being the ultimate confectioner, it should be pretty easy for her to make sugar-free sweets, but apparently she's too stupid to care about her friends potentially being killed. And it's not like both sides have equally petty reasons to hate each other either. Seiko is mad at Ruruka because Ruruka constantly relied on her without really returning the favor. It's especially sad since Ruruka is one of the more memorable characters. So to have what would have been an interesting character analysis be completely ruined by one particular aspect really saddens me. 2 out of 10.
Ryota Mitare.
I don't know whether Mitarai is liked or not in the fandom, but I see this character as not only one of the best written characters in this anime, but a character that is also good in comparison to mainline Danganronpa characters. I felt like it was such a breath of fresh air to see a character who genuinely wanted to do the right thing, but the means of doing so would do a lot more harm. In fact, I was initially siding with him before I realized the potential consequences. I also like how his actions as the final antagonist are properly set up with how he was constantly being taken advantage of in the Despair arc. So seeing that he finally wants to use his talents for good, it's like seeing his character arc go full circle, and I love that! Some people might think his actions are kind of stupid of him, but considering what he went through, I think it makes perfect sense for his character. 8 out of 10.
Seiko Kimura.
To be honest, the reason why most people remember Seiko is due to her feud with Ruruka, and while that is a huge part of her character, there are other things I like about her too. For one, I think her design is one of the most unique in the series, in a good way, and I really like how she uses her medicines as power-ups. 5 out of 10.
That one guy.
Take a good look at this guy. This is the peak of forgettable characters. Has this dude done anything that is even slightly memorable? Certainly not that I remember. At least Mahiru had fans. At least Tengen was hated. Heck, at least you could remember both of their names. I deliberately didn't show this dude's name because without the aid of Google search, you'd be unable to tell what it is. Literally the only things that make him stand out in the slightest are the fact that he has a big, cloud-like sword, and that he's Ruruka's boyfriend. I guess you would say that he only serves as Ruruka's eye candy. 1 out of 10.
Danganronpa.